I always thought the big shifts in life came with a bang. A fight, an accident, some kind of explosive moment you could point to and say, that's when everything changed. Turns out, sometimes it comes with a whisper, or worse, silence. It was a Tuesday, late September, one of those cool evenings where the air bites a little, not enough for a coat, but enough to remind you that summer's over and things are turning. I was standing out on the balcony, barefoot, mug of coffee in hand, watching the lights flicker in the apartment complex across the street. I liked that view. You could see people living their lives, arguing, laughing, pacing around on phone calls. Tiny dramas in tiny boxes. It made me feel grounded. Inside, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Kate hadn't said much that day. Or that week, if I'm being honest. The kind of quiet that creeps in over time. Like fog. At first, you don't even notice it. But then one morning you wake up and realize you haven't had a real conversation in days. Just functional chatter. Do we need eggs? I'll be late tonight. Did you pay the rent? The stuff that keeps the engine running while the whole car rusts underneath. I took a sip of my coffee, half bitter, half burnt, and leaned into the railing, letting the cold metal cool my forehead. That's when I heard the bedroom door open. I turned my head, expecting sweatpants and a messy bun, the way she usually looked when she got ready for bed. But no, she stepped into the hallway like she was walking onto a photo shoot set. Hair pinned up with just enough strands falling loose to look effortless. Gold dress, tight, shimmering, short, and heels 3 inches, maybe 4, the kind she wore when we went to weddings or galas. Not for a meeting. Not for anything she'd done in the past 3 years. My stomach dropped. Not a sharp, sudden drop. More like a slow sink. Like an elevator cable unraveling one steel strand at a time. I turned back toward her, coffee still in hand. Where are you going? She was at the mirror by the front door, fixing her earring. Didn't look at me. Didn't blink. Just said, I have a late meeting with clients. I won't be back until tomorrow. And that was it. No elaboration. No smile. Not even the courtesy of eye contact. For a second, I just stood there, stuck in that moment like it was made of glue. Then I looked down at my coffee, still steaming, and realized my hand was shaking. I knew something was off. I'd known for weeks, maybe months. But this was the first time it felt undeniable. It wasn't the words she said. It was the tone. Or the lack of one. She could have told me she was flying to Mars and I might have believed it more. That's how disconnected it felt. Like she wasn't even talking to me. Just performing. I didn't say anything back. Just nodded once, slowly. Like I was trying to convince myself I believed her. She turned, finally, grabbed her purse from the hook by the door. Her perfume lingered in the hallway after she walked out. Sweet, musky, unfamiliar. Not the one she usually wore for work. That was subtle, professional. This one was different. The kind that hangs in the air and follows you into a room. I stood there for a few minutes after the door closed, staring at it, listening for the lock that never came. She didn't lock it behind her. She always locked it. Always. Something about that made it worse. I walked back into the living room, coffee in hand, and sank into the couch. The leather creaked under me. I looked at the spot next to mine, her usual seat, and realized how long it had been since we'd sat there together. Not just sat there, but been there, present, together. We used to watch bad reality shows and make fun of them, laugh at the same dumb jokes. She used to rest her feet on my lap, and I'd pretend to hate it but secretly didn't mind. I couldn't remember the last time we did that. The TV remote was right where she always left it, face down on the edge of the cushion like she never really planned on using it. I picked it up, then put it down. I didn't want background noise. I wanted clarity. Or maybe I wanted to feel the silence. Let it sink in and confirm what I already knew but hadn't said out loud. She was lying. Not just tonight. Not just now. But for a while. And the worst part? I think I'd been letting her. I'd ignored the signs. The sudden interest in late meetings. The new dresses that still had the tags on them. The password change on her phone after an update. The way she'd flinch when I walked into the room while she was texting, like she was doing something wrong. Or the way she stopped asking about my day, stopped touching me, stopped seeing me. It's funny how you can live with someone, share a bed with them, and still feel like you're in two different countries. The apartment was starting to feel like a museum, perfectly arranged, cold, and haunted. I pulled out my phone and opened our last text thread. It was all logistics. Pick up milk. Traffic on the bridge. Running late. Don't forget your mom's birthday. Not one, I miss you. Not one, I love you. Not even a dumb meme. Just the kind of stuff roommates would send. Or coworkers. I closed the thread and stared at the home screen. Her contact photo stared back at me. Smiling, happy, from a trip to San Diego 2 years ago. God, she looked different now. I looked different too. I thought about calling her, asking again where she was going, telling her I didn't believe her. But what would that even do? If she was cheating, would she suddenly confess? Say, you caught me, I'll turn around? Or would she double down? Lie harder? Part of me didn't want the answer. Not yet. Another part of me already had it. I walked into the kitchen and poured the rest of my coffee down the sink. My hands were still shaking. I stared at the drain for a long time before turning off the light. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sound of her key in the lock. But it never came. The bed felt massive, cold, like the space she used to fill was daring me to admit it was empty now. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't believe she'd come back the same person, if she came back at all. The next morning, Kate still hadn't come home. I checked my phone the moment I opened my eyes. No messages, no missed calls, nothing. Just the same quiet screen that had become a mirror for our relationship. Flat, unresponsive, empty. I stared at the ceiling for a while, listening to the faint hum of traffic outside and the creak of pipes heating up in the walls. She used to send a text when she stayed out overnight, even if it was just to say she got to the hotel safely or that she was exhausted and needed sleep. This time, radio silence. That told me more than any confession ever could. I didn't jump up and storm around the apartment. I didn't throw anything or yell into a pillow. I just got up, brushed my teeth, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table like a man watching his house sink into the ground. Calm, helpless, weirdly at peace with the fact that it was happening. The signs had been there for a while. I just pretended they weren't. The first one was subtle. She started taking her phone with her everywhere. I don't mean keeps it in her pocket kind of everywhere. I mean from the bathroom to the laundry room to the balcony. Even when she was brushing her teeth, the phone was within arm's reach. It used to sit on the coffee table, unlocked, open to some book she was reading or a recipe she wanted to try. But now, face down, locked, always. She changed her phone password one morning, said it was because of a security update. But the look she gave me when she said it didn't match the words. It was tight-lipped, cautious, almost rehearsed, like she'd been waiting for me to notice and was already holding a prepared statement. Then there was the showering. She used to wait for me to get home, and we'd talk while she got ready for bed. It was our little window, those 20 minutes between dinner and sleep when we could actually connect. But lately, she'd rush into the bathroom the moment I walked in the door, like my arrival was some kind of alarm bell. At first, I figured it was just bad timing. Then it happened 4 nights in a row. I'd get home from work, tired, wanting nothing more than to see my wife, and she'd be already in the shower, door locked. And when she came out, she'd be quiet, distant, almost annoyed that I was still standing there, waiting. I tried to brush it off. People go through phases, right? Stress at work, burnout, emotional fatigue. But this didn't feel like stress. This felt like a wall being built, one cold brick at a time. I remember one night, I was sitting on the couch watching some old movie, and she came out of the bedroom dressed up. Not quite like the gold dress night, but still more effort than usual. Tight jeans, low-cut blouse, fresh lipstick. I asked, "You going somewhere?" She barely looked up from her phone. "Meeting some of the girls for drinks." "Anyone I know?" She hesitated. "Just some work friends." You wouldn't know them. That's when it hit me. She wasn't even trying to make it sound believable anymore. She used to give details. Names. Places. Now it was vague lines and rushed exits. I waited up that night. Not because I didn't trust her. Okay, that's a lie. I waited because I needed to see something. Some sign that I was wrong. That I was being paranoid. But she didn't get home until nearly 3 a.m. And when she did, she smelled different. Her hair was styled again, like she'd done it halfway through the night. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying, or maybe drinking. Her blouse was buttoned wrong. I wanted to ask. God, I wanted to ask. But I couldn't get the words out. I just said, "Everything okay?" She nodded without looking at me and mumbled, "Tired. Going to bed." And that was that. The next day, I found one of her earrings on the passenger seat of our car. Not the one she wore the night before, a different pair. And that made no sense because she hadn't taken our car. She called an Uber. I saw it pull away from the curb. When I asked about the earring, she blinked. Oh, must have dropped it earlier this week. But I'd cleaned the car 2 days ago. It wasn't there then. Still, I nodded. I even smiled. Because part of me was still trying to protect something. Her? Us? Myself? I'm not even sure anymore. Another time I checked the laundry. Not snooping, just doing what I always did. Tossing her blouse in with the rest of our stuff. But I noticed a receipt in the pocket. A restaurant. One of those dimly lit, expensive spots you don't go to with coworkers. The kind with wine lists longer than the menu. It was dated last Thursday, another girl's night. But the name on the receipt wasn't hers. It was his. Jake. Jake. The name sat in my chest like a stone. I knew that name. She'd mentioned him years ago when we were still dating. Her college ex. The one who taught her how to cook. The one who broke her heart but helped her grow. That guy. He was always just a story. A ghost. Until now. I stared at the receipt for a long time before folding it back up and slipping it into my wallet. Like I needed it. Like part of me still needed proof. Even when everything in my gut was already screaming the truth. Later that week, she told me she'd be spending the night at her friend Amanda's place. They were doing a girls' wine and spa night, and she didn't want to drive home tipsy. Totally reasonable on the surface. But Amanda lived 15 minutes away. And Kate? She hated sleepovers. Always said she couldn't sleep in other people's beds. That was the night it all clicked for me. I stayed up again, not even pretending to relax this time. I stared at the door until the sun started to rise. She didn't come back until 11 a.m. the next day. When she walked in, she looked surprised, like she didn't expect to see me there. She blinked, adjusted her purse on her shoulder, and gave me this weak smile. "Hey, you're up early." I didn't answer. I just stared. She paused for a beat, then walked past me toward the bedroom. That was when I knew for sure. Not just suspected. Not wondered. Knew. There was someone else. And my wife. The woman I shared a home, a bed, a life with wasn't just slipping away. She was already gone. I waited until the door clicked shut behind her. No kiss. No, "I love you." Just the familiar sound of her heels retreating down the hallway and the mechanical hum of the elevator swallowing her whole. I stood there in the silence of our apartment, the ticking of the wall clock suddenly too loud, like a countdown I hadn't realized had started. For a second, I just listened, hoping maybe she'd come back for something she forgot. Her wallet, her charger, her excuse. She didn't. I moved. It wasn't like me. I'm not the type to snoop. Hell, I used to roll my eyes at guys who did that, checking phones, digging through bags, setting up cameras. But there's something that happens when the person you trust most starts feeling like a stranger in your home. You either look away and pretend it's nothing, or you dig. And tonight I dug. First stop, the bedroom closet. I opened the door slowly, like I expected to find a ghost waiting for me. The scent of her perfume lingered, sweet and powdery. Used to be comforting. Now it turned my stomach. Her work bag was hanging right where she always kept it. Sleek, black, designer. The kind of thing you'd bring into a meeting to close a deal. I pulled it off the hook, careful not to disturb anything around it. My hands were sweating, my heart beating way too fast for a guy standing in his own bedroom. I unzipped the main compartment. Inside, no contracts, no agency tablet, no day planner, no phone charger, nothing even resembling work. Instead, I found a folded evening dress, short, silky, wine-colored, one I'd never seen before, pair of sheer stockings, compact mirror, a tiny box of breath strips, and nothing else. No work files, no meeting notes, just the toolkit for a night out with someone you're trying to impress. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at the bag in my lap like it might change shape if I looked at it long enough. I turned my phone over in my hand, debating with myself, chewing the inside of my cheek until it hurt. And then, like some sick joke, a notification popped up. One new email. From Anonymous. Subject. Proof. That was it. No message, no intro. Just a PDF attachment. I hesitated. My fingers hovered over the screen. I thought about not opening it. About just deleting it and pretending it never came. Because I already knew. Deep down, I already knew. But I tapped it anyway. It took a second to load. Long enough for me to feel the full weight of the moment pressing down on my chest. And then the video opened. It was grainy, clearly from a phone camera. Nighttime. Parking lot. Car pulls into the frame, headlights off. After a few seconds, the driver's door opens. Kate steps out. She's wearing the same coat she left the apartment in tonight. She walks around to the passenger side and opens it. A man gets out. Tall. Dark shirt, no tie. Casual, confident. He smiles at her like they've done this 100 times before. Like this isn't new. Not a one-time mistake. She smiles back. They laugh. And then he does it. He reaches for her waist, pulls her in. She lets him. They walk toward a house at the edge of the frame. I squinted. The porch light clicked on automatically, revealing a familiar outline. That house. I knew that house. It was Jake's. I hadn't seen it in years. Not since Kate had sworn he was out of her life for good. Not since she told me I had nothing to worry about. That they didn't talk anymore. That I was being paranoid. And yet, there she was, walking up to his porch like she'd done it 1,000 times. I paused the video. My heart was hammering in my ears. My throat was dry. I felt like I had been punched in the chest and couldn't get air. I looked around our bedroom, our framed wedding photo above the dresser, the throw blanket we picked out together, the dumb motivational sign on the wall that said, "Trust is everything." I laughed. A hollow, bitter, exhausted kind of laugh. Because trust? Yeah. That was gone. I reopened the video and let it play. It zoomed in slightly as they stepped into the house. He had his hand on the small of her back. She didn't pull away, didn't flinch. She looked comfortable. She looked home. And that broke something in me. Not because she cheated, I'd already suspected that. But because of how easy it looked for her. How natural. Like she hadn't just betrayed me. Like she wasn't living two lives. Like I was the side plot and this was her real story. The video ended. I sat in the dark with the screen still glowing in my hand. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. All I know is, at some point, the sadness drained out and was replaced by something else. Focus. Clarity. Resolve. I put the phone down, walked into the bathroom, and stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked pale. Tired. Hollow-eyed. A guy who'd been lied to for too long. Then I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I got dressed. Not for work. Not to run errands. But to drive. I didn't know exactly what I'd do when I got there. I didn't have a speech prepared. I wasn't even sure I'd go through with it. All I knew was, I needed to see it with my own eyes. Not a video. Not a **T. Not a whisper of suspicion. Reality. Because once you see the truth with your own eyes, you can't unsee it. And once you reach that point, there's no going back. The drive out to Jake's place felt like the longest 35 minutes of my life. It was dark, but I barely noticed the road. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, white-knuckled, and my foot kept creeping heavier on the gas until I had to remind myself, don't lose control. Not now. The suburbs gave way to narrow, winding roads. Trees lining both sides, moonlight cutting between branches, casting strange shadows on the windshield. I remembered when Kate first pointed out Jake's place to me. We were still dating back then. She called it peaceful and simple, said it reminded her of the life she almost had, but didn't want anymore. Guess that changed. As I pulled up the street, I turned off my headlights halfway down the block. I parked behind a row of tall hedges, out of view, engine off, just sitting there for a moment. My heart pounding in my ears, sweat pooling under my shirt despite the cold. Kate's car was there. Of course it was. Parked just off the driveway. That sleek little coupe I helped her pick out. The same one I made payments on for the first 6 months because she was between jobs. Seeing it there, parked in his space, felt like a punch to the ribs. I got out slowly, shutting the door without a sound. Every crunch of gravel under my shoes sounded like an alarm. I kept to the shadows, circling around the side of the house where I remembered the backyard opened into a deck with wide glass sliding doors. Jake was always proud of those doors, said they made the house feel more open. Ironic, considering what I was about to see through them. I crept down the side path, heart hammering, breath shallow. As I reached the corner of the house, I crouched near the edge of the patio wall and peeked inside. There they were. Right there, in the glow of the fireplace, like a goddamn rom-com scene. Kate was in a robe. His robe, I assumed, curled up on the couch, glass of red wine in her hand. Her legs tucked underneath her, bare. She looked relaxed, not like someone who had just lied to her husband and walked out on their life. She looked comfortable, cozy. Jake was next to her, in sweats and a faded t-shirt, laptop on his knees. He said something. She laughed. Not just a polite chuckle, the real kind. The kind I hadn't heard in months. Cracked something in me. They didn't kiss. They didn't touch. But the int asterisk Macy in that room was louder than anything physical. It was the ease of it, the quiet rhythm of people who had done this before. Many times. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Called her. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me still believed she'd see my name on the screen and realize she'd made a mistake. That she'd excuse herself, walk outside, and tell me it wasn't what it looked like. But she didn't even flinch. She looked at the phone, let it ring once, side, like I was the inconvenience, and silenced it. Jake didn't even pause. And that was the last straw. I stepped up to the glass door and knocked. Firm. Not loud, but enough. Kate flinched. She looked toward the door and froze. Jake turned, confused. A second later, she was on her feet, her face drained of color. She mouthed something to Jake, "Stay here," and walked to the door, slowly, like she was trying to buy time. When she opened it, she didn't step outside immediately. Just stood in the frame, arms crossed, robe pulled tighter around her like that might somehow hide what I already knew. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice low, guarded, like I was the one intruding. I stared at her for a long moment. I couldn't even speak at first. There was so much rage, confusion, sadness swirling in my chest. I didn't know which emotion would come out if I opened my mouth. So I didn't. I just looked at her. She glanced behind her nervously. "Mark, this isn't the time. We can talk later." I laughed. A short, bitter, joyless laugh. "Later," I said finally. "You mean after the wine? After the cuddling? After the lies?" Her jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "No, I do," I said louder now. "I understand exactly. You're not working late. You're not with clients. You're here. With him." She stepped outside finally, pulling the door shut behind her. "Keep your voice down," she hissed. I shook my head in disbelief. "You're worried about him hearing? What about me, Kate? What about the guy you've been lying to for, what, weeks? Months?" "It's complicated," she said, looking down. "Complicated," I repeated. "It's simple. You're married to me, and you're sleeping at your ex's place." "I didn't plan this," she said, her voice cracking. I stared at her. "Then what did you plan? Because all I see is you walking away from everything we built without even blinking." She didn't respond, just stood there, biting her lip, eyes glossy. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. might break down, might say something real. Instead, she whispered, "I didn't think you'd come," and that hurt more than anything else. Not just because of what it implied that she'd planned to get away with it, but because it was true. She didn't think I'd come, because for too long I hadn't. I trusted her, given her space, believed in her even when the signs screamed not to. And now I was standing in the cold, face to face with the woman I married, and realizing she wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she hadn't been for a while. I took a deep breath and stepped back. "Don't come home," I said, my voice steady. "I'll have your things packed by tomorrow. You can pick them up whenever." She looked like she wanted to argue, to cry, to explain, but I turned and walked away before she could. I didn't need her words anymore. I had the truth. And once you have that, there's no going back. I didn't sleep the night after the confrontation. I lay in bed, our bed, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. The sheets still smelled faintly like her, like lavender and the expensive lotion she used before bed. I stared at the ceiling until the first light crept through the blinds, and by then, I had already made my decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was done. By 8 a.m., I was on the phone with an attorney. It felt surreal, saying the words out loud. "I want to file for divorce." There's a kind of finality in that sentence, even if you're still in shock. It's like opening a trapdoor under the life you thought you had, knowing there's no climbing back out. I chose a firm that came highly recommended. Efficient, clean, ruthless if necessary. The paralegal on the other end of the line had a calm, soothing voice, like this was just another Tuesday for her, which I guess it was. Meanwhile, I was trying to figure out how to erase a decade of my life without burning down everything around it. By the afternoon, I had started sorting through Kate's things. Her clothes, her books, the picture frames she insisted we keep on the hallway shelf, even though she stopped updating them 2 years ago. I didn't touch our wedding photo. Not yet. I wasn't ready for that. I boxed everything with the kind of mechanical focus you only get when you're numb. Her drawer in the bathroom, her side of the closet, even the stupid collection of artisan teas she never drank but said made her feel like an adult. All of it, labeled, stacked, ready for her to pick up. I was midway through clearing out her nightstand when my phone buzzed. "Kate, are you serious about this?" No greeting, no apology, just the question. I stared at the screen for a long time. Didn't type anything. Didn't need to. 5 minutes later, another message. "Kate, if you go through with this, I'll tell your coworkers something interesting." I blinked. Another buzz. "Kate, I still have access to those project files from last year. I don't think your firm would appreciate some of what's in there being public." That's when it hit me. She wasn't just trying to stop the divorce. She was trying to control it. That was her first move. Int asterisk medation. I didn't take the bait. I didn't even respond. She called not long after. I let it go to voicemail. Then another text came through. "Kate, fine. You want to pretend you're squeaky clean? Remember this." Attached was a photo. Us at a bar. I was hugging her, both of us laughing, drinks in hand, the kind of buzzed joy you only get when things still feel okay. Caption: "You weren't so innocent either." I almost laughed. The photo was from over a year ago. A trip to Chicago. We were still happy then, or pretending well enough to fool even ourselves. And somehow she thought that was leverage? It was desperate. That's what struck me. Not the threat. Not the fake blackmail. But the panic in it. She wasn't in control anymore. And it terrified her. I sat on the couch, the one we bought during our first year of marriage, and stared at the screen until it dimmed to black. And then, slowly, I realized I wasn't scared of her anymore. Not her threats. Not her tears. Not her manipulations. She could smear my name at work. She could twist the narrative. But I had something she'd never have again. Clarity. The fog had lifted. A few days later, I got an email from her lawyer. She had lawyered up. The tone was formal, clipped, transactional. It talked about fair asset distribution and uncontested separation, as if we were dividing up a storage unit and not our entire life. I didn't reply immediately. I needed time. Not to think, but to make sure I stayed calm. That night, Kate showed up, unannounced. I heard the key in the lock. She still had one. My stomach twisted, not from fear, but from the dull ache of seeing someone who used to be your everything walk into a room like a stranger. She stood in the doorway, eyes red, makeup smudged. She hadn't even tried to look polished. Just raw, real. And for a second, I saw the version of her I used to fight for. "I just want to talk," she said. I didn't answer, just stood still, arms crossed, waiting. "I know I messed up," she whispered. "I know I hurt you. But please, Mark, Jake meant nothing." I exhaled slowly. She stepped closer. It wasn't about him. It was about me. I felt dead inside. I needed something. Something to feel alive again. Alive. She kept using that word. Like our life had become a coma she needed to wake from. She reached for my hand. I didn't move. "I'm sorry," she said, voice cracking. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to therapy. I'll cut off Jake. Just don't end us like this. We can fix this." I looked at her. Really looked at her. And what I saw wasn't the woman I married. It wasn't even the woman who cheated. It was someone drowning. And looking for a lifeline in me, the person she pushed overboard months ago. "I don't recognize you," I said quietly. "And I don't think you recognize yourself." Tears filled her eyes, spilling over. "I still love you," she whispered. And maybe she did, in her own broken, panicked, selfish way. But love isn't enough when trust is dead. I walked to the front door, opened it, and held it there. She didn't move at first, but she got the message. She walked past me, paused at the threshold, and looked back, like she thought I might change my mind in the final seconds. I didn't. The door clicked shut behind her. And for the first time in weeks, the silence didn't feel heavy. Felt clean. A week passed. No texts, no calls, just stillness. I started to breathe again. But then she showed up. No warning. Just her on the front steps in a hoodie and jeans, eyes red-rimmed, holding an old photo of us. "I messed up," she said. "I thought I needed more, but I already had everything." I didn't respond. Her voice cracked, hands shaking. "Please, let's go back." But I saw it in her face. This wasn't love. It was desperation. Regret for being caught, not for what she'd done. I said nothing, just closed the door. The next morning, I signed the divorce papers. Simple, quiet, no drama. Her number? Deleted. Messages? Gone. The video? Erased. It wasn't about revenge. It was about letting go. She kept trying texts, voicemails, pity plays. I ignored everyone. A month later, I moved back to my hometown. By the bay, under a sky untouched by all we ruined, I realized something. I hadn't lost anything. I'd wreck.